Hi, this is Ferre with TaxSaleSupport.com. I'm here with Stephen Swenson, and this is one of our uh, tax sale YouTube training videos here, where we talk about different aspects of tax sale investing that are important, including this week discussing risks. What are some of the risks that are associated with tax sale investing? And certainly, like any true investment, there are risks that are involved. There are ways that you can lose money. And so because of that, it's important to understand what you're doing so that you can try to minimize those and you can avoid the mistakes because there are lots of mistakes you can make, and there are lots of risks out there, but they can be avoided like anything else.
Yeah, definitely. And we think this is the number one risk of buying tax deed homes. There's other risks that you're going to come across, but for us, this is probably the most important one. And this is the one that we see mistakes happen, I would say, every single week. Not by our students, not by our members, but by people that we're bidding against, or our students are bidding against at the auction. And this is not doing a on-site evaluation before buying a structured property.
Yeah, in fact, sorry if I skipped it there. This is it's a simple risk, but it's also one that people make on a regular basis. And the reason they do it is because they see information online that they want to believe. They'll see something like maybe they'll go to Google or Google Maps, and they'll see an image of the property, a street side image of the property. It's only a few years old, and if it looks decent, then maybe they'll want to use that image, or maybe they want to consider and figure that that is what the current condition of the property is. And so maybe they just use that instead of actually sending somebody by to get images of the property. And really, that's what we have to do. That has to be the standard for improved properties, is we have to have current images, just because it's the only way we can know what the condition of the property is. I mean, if it burned down, a month or two ago, the only way we're going to know that is by sending somebody by there, to get images of it. And so this is a crucial step, but it's one where if people don't take that step, if they miss this and they don't get images of the property, it's very easy for people to basically essentially buy something different from what they believe they're buying.
Yeah, definitely. And we see this mistake happen at on-site auctions where people are living in that particular city. In fact, Shade attended with our students an auction last month in Oklahoma and an auction this month in Arkansas. And in both locations, you could see people bidding on the property that hadn't gone out and done an on-site evaluation, or they wouldn't be bidding that aggressively. And there's such a big difference sometimes between the online version of what the home looks like and what the on-site version looks like. That can make a huge difference in a period of 6 months or even a period of 30 days. And so that's the reason it's so important before bidding on any structured property that we make sure to get those on-site evaluations, because with tax sale investing, we really do have to judge the book by the cover. We have to look at the outside of the property and try to make a determination of what the inside looks like.
Yeah, this actually it's an area too where we see a lot of people make mistakes with this every time. I mean, and they were locals, which sometimes that can be confusing. You might think, well, if this person lives here by the property, why wouldn't they go and drive? Why wouldn't they go and look at it? And it's because it is a mistake that people make, just by it's one by laziness, in a way. It's easier to not send somebody out there, to the property, and you kind of want to believe the images there to make the property look good. You want to believe, hey, everything's great with it, and so maybe you decide not to send somebody out there to look at it, and the condition can be very different from what it was, even if that wasn't that long of a time period ago. Even if it was maybe just a few years. A lot of things can change very quickly with real estate.
Yeah, definitely. And you have two people that are bidding against each other without doing an on-site evaluation. So each person thinks that the person they're bidding against knows something about the property that they don't know, and so they keep bidding because the other person's bidding. It's pretty crazy to see, but we see it happen every single month. Here's a property I just pulled out to a lot of these different examples, but this is a property with in an auction that we attended last month. You can see the Google Street View was from 2024. You can see the cars in the driveway, so it looks like it's currently occupied. the front yard has the grass is a little overgrown, but it's not too bad. It looks like it's being lived in. The windows seem secure. Everything on the property looks like, yes, it's not in great condition, but it's in livable condition.
Yeah, yeah. I don't see anything, at least on it, that would be too glaring or obvious here, that would make it not usable at this point. Um, at least from what we can see there, it does look like it was currently being lived in there, or it was, at that time in April of 2024.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the photo that was taken this year, about a year later. And so within a year period of time, we can see all of the overgrowth that's come up. We can see that all of the windows have been boarded up. That's going to be a big concern. The fact that we see the overgrowth of that length, this property hasn't probably been touched for a year. And why did it get boarded up? What happened a year ago or since that time that the property was occupied until now? Was there a fire? Was there some type of serious damage? Those are all going to be red flags for us. And so many times we'll see a property that looks like it could be livable, could be a good deal, to go out there and look at the property in person, and there's enough red flags for us that we would go ahead and back away and not even bid on this property.
Yeah, yeah. On this one in particular, it's there are a few things that are a little bit confusing. I would probably want to look into it more, because I'm not sure. It's not clear. It might have been the owner or somebody that's involved with the property's ownership that did the boarding up on it. I don't know if it was. I don't know if this was boarded up by the county or not. um, it's hard to tell, but the roof itself and the property itself, the rest of it, the things that are not boarded up, don't look terrible. They actually look kind of decent. Now, the weeds and everything, yeah, we're probably looking at about a year's worth of growth there. But the house itself, what we can see, doesn't look too bad. And so, it would be interesting to look more into it. And just because, yeah, just because it's boarded up doesn't necessarily mean that that it's a bad property or that it wouldn't be worth buying. It certainly could definitely be worth buying and using, even if it's boarded up like this. The boarding up could be and end up being a good thing. It could be something that's just keeping it secure and making sure that nobody gets inside.
Yeah, it could be, and there could also have been some damage that's taken place. So I would, and sometimes when we're boarded up, I completely agree. And then sometimes it can be for obvious reasons or for needed reasons. I could probably agree that it looks like it was probably the owner that boarded it up. But I do have a few concerns with it. Would really need to check and see more about it, get some better views if it's going to be a good investment. Because if this property is only worth 60 grand and you're paying 20 or 30 grand for it, then you're really looking at a way you can lose some money. So it really determine how cheap you can get it, I think, based off the current condition.
Yeah, certainly. You want to avoid properties that are going to need more work than they can ever really be worth. Value limited properties, or what we call those. And certainly the issue there just being that the properties can need potentially far more in repairs than they'll ever really be worth. And the problem with that is that it's kind of throwing money away. You put money into the property, but you're not necessarily going to get it out of it. If it's a value limited property, it's a property, let's say, that is valued at 60,000 or at 70,000, it's hard to make it worth much more than that. Or at least, it's hard to put a lot of money into that property, just because it's if you're going to have a hard time selling it over that amount, it's really going to limit what kinds of repairs you can even do on it, and still be profitable. But the only way you're going to know about any of this is if you make sure you get images of the properties. And so getting images of the properties is an important step, especially if you're buying improved properties like homes. Then this is a crucial part of what you do. And so we need to find somebody that can take those images for us. And there are a couple of different options or routes that you can go if you are looking to get images of properties. And we've gone all of these routes here before. And we still do use a number of these different methods here. Sometimes we still hire people to take photos for us on a regular basis.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to go through each one of these options and kind of talk about each one of them, starting with the handyman. We've always liked the handyman, and the reason is because they're going to understand certain aspects of real estate, fixing property up. That's kind of what they do. And so, in addition to fixing property, many times we'll try to find a handyman that can go out there and take photos for us. Usually, most of the routes are probably going to be less than a couple of hours, unless you're checking out dozens and dozens of homes. They should be able to get it done pretty quickly. So you're not paying them for a huge amount of time. Yes, they may be a little bit more expensive, but you're also looking at somebody that has more knowledge about real estate and can look for some of those things that could cost you money in the long run. We also like to use them because sometimes we can hook them to help us afterwards, or it's kind of an extra incentive for them. Hey, we'd like you to take some of these photos for us. We're willing to pay you this for your time. And then if we're able to win any of these properties, we'd like to have you help us secure the property, meet the locksmith or change the locks, clean out any trash, anything like that, so that we can get the property to either start rehabbing or turn around and wholesale. And so they can be a great person, not only take photos for us, but also help us with that initial securing and cleaning the property, so that we can decide what we're going to do with it.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about handyman is that essentially they're kind of the first team person that you're adding, to your, to your investment team in that area. Which again, you're going to need a local group there, people that can do the on-site work, and a handyman is perfect for a lot of the stuff that you may need somebody there to do. So stuff like, like swapping out locks, that's perfect work there for a handyman, or placing a for sale sign or something like that. There's lots and lots of different things that they can do, or services that they could potentially provide, along with having their expertise, with real estate and repairs. So they have expertise in a lot of areas that can help us. They can identify issues. There's lots of things there. The downside to handyman is it might not be the cheapest route to go. You could probably do it cheaper, finding somebody, hiring somebody to take photos for you. Just because the handyman generally, they're used to getting a certain hourly rate, and so if you're going to keep them occupied there for that entire hour, you pretty well know what your rate's going to be.
Yeah, definitely. The
Now there
second
are
way is
other
through
ways though.
classifieds. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say the same thing. If we don't use a handyman, classifieds are another way that we have that we found other people to do it for us.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of different ways we could do that. One way that we do that is we put an ad in the paper or in Craigslist or something like that. Sometimes we'll look and see if there's some type of local, local service, local classified ads as well. But anyone that has a camera and a car can pretty much do this for us. And so we'll kind of line out what the actual job is, and the time that it takes. In fact, it's one thing that we teach our membership in our weekly webinars is how to be able to create the routes and have somebody drive past and look at each one of these properties for you and determine how much you're willing to pay and how much time it's going to take. And so, last month we had 150 different homes that we had to go get photos of for one of the big auctions that we were attending. We're mapping out 150 homes. You need to be able to do that pretty organized. Now, most of us aren't going to be doing that. We're doing that with a big group. Most of you will probably be, looking at less than 10. But even then, how long is it going to take to drive those 10 homes? And how much are we willing to pay for the time that it's going to take, and take into consideration things like the gas money or any expense that may be needed?
That actually is one nice aspect of this as well, is that because we're plotting out basically the entire driving route that they're going to be taking, and we know what their activities and stuff are going to be. We know roughly about how long it's going to take, and how much driving they're going to need to do, and so we can take all those things into account for the pay. Um, it's one of the reasons why it can be attractive. It's an attractive job opportunity for people that are looking for a little bit of side income. It has all of the elements there that they're looking for. it will pay a decent amount. They can do it just with their car, which is pretty much all they need, and their phone. So it's a very attractive option there for locals here when you do hire from classifieds. And again, that could be something like Craigslist. It could be, well, I guess there are other kinds of classified services that exist out there. Some including free classified services like Craigslist, and also paid classified services. There are some of those out there as well. So really, I guess it's region or area specific, depending on what is used. But one thing that is nice is that with classified listings, when you list one with one service, it tends to be pretty easy to duplicate and list that same listing with somebody else. It's usually a lot of copy and paste type stuff. So we can usually set up with multiple classified services too when we do one.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely probably the cheapest way to go. And you kind of figure what your costs are going to be. Go ahead and put in the classified ad and wait for people to contact you. And if you have a few different people contact you, try to pick the best one to be able to do the job based on your conversation with them. Another kind of no-brainer is just to hire a photographer to do it.
Yeah. In fact, I guess the photographers can be people who take photos of lots of different things. It doesn't necessarily, I mean, sometimes when we think of photographers, we think of being some kind of a quality thing. But not necessarily the case here with these photographers. We could easily hire somebody that is a professional photographer here. The difference here is that we don't necessarily need
We're
something.
not having the family portraits done.
Yeah,
Any type of freelance photographer, brand new photographer, part-time and photographer, those are usually kind of what we're targeting. We're not calling the person that's doing the family portraits. We're looking, and in fact, a lot of times we'll use this on an online service as well. So looking for a photographer, you can do that through using the classified ads, or you can look up different classified ads where photographers are offering their work. The yellow pages or social media websites. There's a lot of freelance photographers that are offering up their work. So you can either create an ad and find a photographer, or look up different photographers that are advertising their business, whether it be through something like Facebook or some of the other social media sites online that you can go ahead and hire to be able to do the job for you.
Yeah, we also live in an era right now of side hustles, side little projects and things that people can do, to make money with just their phone, and because of that, there are more and more opportunities that are opening up, more businesses are starting, including, services for getting photos or images taken of real estate, lots of things. An example of that would be a service called Proxy Pics, which is a service that you can pay to get images or photos taken of anything essentially. It is a service that's available, and it's one that we have used before, and you can do it successfully. Of course, I think we've used it unsuccessfully as well. If you're not careful about specifying exactly what you need, you can get pictures that are well, really as useful as no information at all. So that's something you have to be careful of with photos is making sure that you're providing enough directions that the person you're getting images will provide images that can actually help you.
Yeah, I think that's a big point. There's different options like Proxy Pics, and there's some other ones out there. I know that we have a few more listed on our website. Proxy Pics is probably the biggest one. But there's other kind of companies out there that can go ahead and do it for you through kind of a crowdsourcing option to hire different people. And so that's always an option as well. But Shade brought up the most important part, and that's really educating your photographer or educating the person that's going to be doing it for you, whether that be a handyman or even just somebody you hire from Craigslist. It's important to tell them exactly what you need. In fact, we'll many times give them a bonus if they do a good job. So here's what we'll pay you. We'll give you this additional bonus if you make sure to get photos of the sides, photo of the front. We want between 4 to 6 photos from different angles so that we can really get a good evaluation of the property, and we're willing to pay you a little extra to be able to do that. Because like Shade said, you can go ahead and sometimes we've got back one photo and it's really not even that high of a quality one, and it doesn't really give us the enough information to make a good determination. So we've got to send somebody out there again if we want photos taken. In fact, this is something that we'll teach our students and our members on how to do, is how to really educate the buyer, educate the photographer in what they need to do to be able to take good photos for you.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for them to do it correctly if they don't really understand what it is that you need or what you're trying to determine or evaluate. And so it does help, if you can explain it to to the photographer, the person taking the photos, because understanding that certainly will help them, understand the types of images and things that you may need. But we also try to encourage them to take images of problems that they see with the property. If there's damage, with the property, or if there are obvious repairs that are needed, those are things that we want them to get images of, and that they can focus on. Those things are all very helpful and good ways to learn things about the property. If you're going to send somebody by the property to take photos, let's make sure we get good images of problems, if there are problems that exist. But yeah, educating the photographer. A lot of times, we send them. We've got different PDFs that we send them, but we've got to have, we have to have images that show us, at least we need to be able to see what the condition of the roof and of the foundation, and all your primary walls. And I mean, we need to be able to look at all of that stuff. The more the information we have, the better off we always are when it comes to trying to make decisions on this. The lack of information is never really helpful there to us all. So the more information they can provide, the better. And the way they do that is by taking good photos. If they take good photos, we can make good investment decisions.
Yeah, definitely. And every property is going to be a little bit different on how good the photos can be. Sometimes they're a little bit harder than other locations, but we want to do the very best. We want to get the very best photos we can, and we need to be able to see things like the roof, see things like the windows, and look for any type of damage that may determine if we're going to bid on that property or not. So it really is important to have an on-site evaluation. Please don't just trust the online information. If you do anything or in the future and you take that one lesson from here, it's going to be hugely beneficial, because it's a mistake that we see happen, as I said, almost probably every single week. And it's kind of sad to see that these people are buying property and they think that it's a certain condition, and when they get out there and view it, they're going to find out that it's not in the condition that they want, and in many cases they're going to lose money. So don't think that just because it's a tax sale you're going to make money. If you don't bid right and you don't do the due diligence, you actually have a good chance of losing money.
Yeah, I would say that's probably one of the more shocking things about the tax sale when you attend it. Once you actually, if you know what you're doing, it's realizing just what percentage of people probably are actually losing money because they're making bad choices. And it's a high percentage. And the reason why they're doing it is because they don't know what they're doing. And uh, they're basically hoping that they are copying or doing the same thing that somebody else is, but that's not usually the case. So yeah, it's easy to make mistakes with this. It's also relatively simple or easy to get good deals on properties if you know what to look for. And so it's and the way you're going to do that is also by getting good images of the properties. That's one thing, is we never buy the property if we can't get images of it. So on any of those, if we don't have images, we simply don't have enough information in order to even be able to make a decision. That's how you also avoid making mistakes, is by having rules like that you stick to. If you don't have images of the property, then you can't make good bidding decisions on it. Therefore, you don't bid. Simple enough thing, but it's something that costs a lot of people a lot of money.
Yeah, definitely. If you like what we do, please go ahead and subscribe, ask us any questions in the comments. And if you want some additional training, the best place to be able to get that is through our membership program at taxsalesupport.com. That's going to give you access to our auction list, our over-the-counter list, all of our online auctions, our land bank list, all of our weekly webinars, our training videos, our programs and PDFs. So it really is the best value in education. We've got monthly options. We've got a yearly option that'll save you a ton of money. So if you'd like to get started, that's going to be the best place, and it's going to give you the knowledge so that you don't go out there and make the mistakes like we're talking about today.
Yeah, yeah, just like anything else, you need to educate yourself so that you understand. And this is probably the best, the most cost-effective way to do that. So thanks for your time. Yeah, like Steve said, be sure to hit that thumbs up button if you like the video.
Yeah, appreciate it.